Just moments ago, new attacks on Chicago from President Trump and a new promise to impose federal law enforcement to fight crime on the ground. He said, quote, "Chicago is the worst and most dangerous city in the world by far." He added, "I will solve the crime problem fast, just like I did in D.C. Chicago will be safe again and soon." Now, we should note that Chicago does not rank in the FBI's top 10 list of the most violent cities in the United States. And you will see Memphis, Nashville, Kansas City there. Those are all cities. Houston in states with Republican governors, and the president not threatening to send in the National Guard to those cities. Now, having said Chicago's not in the top 10, it was a violent weekend there. At least 56 people shot, 7 people killed. Chicago's violent crime rate, though, is dropping. So it is that complicated picture. Let's get right to CNN's Elena Trine at the White House for the latest on what the president's saying. Good morning, Elena.
Good morning, John. And look, I mean, it's clear, very clear from if you've been following what the president has been saying over the last week or so and what he's been posting, a couple posts this morning included, he is really fixated on Chicago right now. And what we did, what we're learning is, one, my colleagues and I broke the news last week that they are planning a major surge in federal law enforcement officials, specifically immigration related officials. That includes ICE and Customs and Border Patrol and other agencies to Chicago to deal with immigration. But all of that coming as the president continues to argue that he wants to try and do what he is doing here in Washington, D.C., in Chicago as well. Now, I do want to be clear in my conversations with White House officials. They've told me that the operation we're likely to see begin this week, we're told it's expected to begin on Friday, is really going to be immigration focused. That's about it. It is not about domestic crime like it is here in D.C. They still have to work out some of the details of that because, again, Chicago is in a state of Illinois. They have a governor, not really the case here in D.C. And so there's some legal questions about what the president and this administration is actually able to do. But as part of this immigration push, we're told it's similar to what we saw happen in L.A. earlier this year. We are also seeing National Guard troops kind of being put on standby and being prepared to be sent to Chicago to help with that. And so all of this coming as the president, and you said it, is posting again this morning saying essentially that Chicago is the worst and most dangerous city in the world, calling out the Illinois governor, J.B. Pritzker, specifically saying that he needs help badly. He just doesn't know it yet. I mean, he is clearly escalating his rhetoric on Chicago and making very clear what he wants to do there, which is exactly what he's doing here in D.C. It's just a question or not of whether he can actually get to, send the type of federal law enforcement agents there that he has done in this city.
Based on your reporting, we should start to see some of it by the end of the week. Elena Trine at the White House, thank you very much. Kate?
Joining us right now to talk about this is the Lieutenant Governor of Illinois, Juliana Stratton. She's also running for the U.S. Senate seat that Dick Durbin will be vacating. Lieutenant Governor, thank you so much for being here. I want to read, just because the president is speaking out about this on social media just this morning. Here's what he said to get you to respond. At least 54 people were shot in Chicago over the weekend. 8 people were killed. The last 2 weekends were similar. Chicago is the worst and most dangerous city in the world by far, the president writes this morning. Pritzker needs help badly. He just doesn't know it yet. I will solve the crime problem fast, just like I did in D.C. Chicago will be safe again and soon. But John did point out, so did Elena Trine, Chicago's not in the top 20 of cities when it comes to FBI crime stats on violent crime, and not in the top 10 when you talk about overall crime rates. So facts and data are critical. But if, Lieutenant Governor, the president is saying that this morning, what do you think is going to happen?
Well, first of all, let me just say that Donald Trump is not focused on public safety. Look, anytime that there's crime anywhere in our state or around the country, we want to continue to see progress being made, and we are making progress here in Illinois and in the city of Chicago. But this is not about public safety, and this is not about making our residents safer. What Donald Trump wants to happen is he wants to manufacture a crisis. He's going to, as we just talked about, there's going to be a surge of ICE enforcement efforts. He knows that people will see those efforts and then want to speak out. People, good, decent people, will be heartbroken to see their neighbors being snatched off the streets and stuffed into unmarked cars. He wants to inflame tensions, and he wants to make sure that that he can cause some sort of crisis, that he can say that he's coming to the rescue. And what we know is that we are going to follow the law here in Illinois. We are going to do everything we can to protect our residents, and we're not going to allow this president who wants to manufacture a crisis, who wants to, quite frankly, make the military presence on American soil something that people normalize. We are going to speak out. We are going to be prepared to do everything we can to protect the residents of our state.
The governor said Sunday that there had been no communication, no outreach whatsoever from the Trump administration to his. Are you aware that any communication has occurred between the administration and leadership in Illinois since then?
Well, we do know that ICE has informed our Illinois State Police Department that they are going to begin operations sometime later this week. But I want to make sure that everyone understands that communication is not the same as coordination. So we got notice, but there's been no direct communication with the governor. There's been no coordination, not just with our administration, but with local law enforcement. And so if this really is about what do we need to do to promote public safety and create safer communities, why would there not be coordination with our administration? Why would we not work with local law enforcement that's already on the ground and has relationships with our communities across the state and across the city? So this is not about public safety. It's not about coordination. And I just want to say this, as somebody who has worked on these issues of building safer communities throughout my career, there's never been an expert that I've spoken with directly who has said what we need is the militarization of federal troops, or we need federal troops on the ground to be the goal of how we get to safer communities. What people are looking for, the exact things that Donald Trump is stripping away. We need access to education, but he's dismantling the Department of Education. We need access to health care, and he's stripping away Medicaid. We need families to be able to put food on the table, and he's stripping away SNAP benefits and making the cost of groceries go up. These are not the things that get to the root causes of violence or crime, and we are going to stay focused on doing what works here in Illinois. It's been working, and we're going to continue making progress. We're not where we need to be, but we're headed that way.
The White House really slammed the governor and was critical of his statement this weekend, calling, if National Guard moves in, calling it an invasion, he said it would be. Do you think that goes too far in calling it an invasion? Are you playing into the White House's hands in using the language?
No, what we are doing is calling out what's happening, which is we are looking at the rise of authoritarianism right in the face. I mean, this is a president who is a weak man who wants to be the center of attention, and he wants to manufacture a crisis so that we can distract from his failures. And so this is an invasion. This is him sending a surge of ICE enforcement, and also wanting to hopefully in his federalized National Guard so that people will feel that it's normal to see troops on the street, armed guards or tanks. This is not normal, and we cannot normalize it. And so we're calling out what he is doing, because what he wants to do is he wants to see a crisis so that long-term people will say, oh, look, this is what we needed. It's not what we need. There's no emergency here in Illinois. We have not asked for this. He's not coordinating with us. And people of Illinois have made it clear this is not what we want. And we will not roll out the red carpet for a wannabe dictator.
What remains a mystery this morning is what it looks like when he says, I am going to make Chicago streets safer, beyond what you have laid out, which is immigration enforcement. So that remains a big question today. Lieutenant Governor, thank you for your time.